How we doing, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. I am your host, Richie. On today's show, we're going to be going NBA heavy, talking about these guys, the New York Knicks, as well as the Milwaukee Bucks. Both of them have a big game today. Milwaukee in Orlando, the Knicks hosting their forever rivals, the Chicago Bulls. A Knicks victory coupled with a Milwaukee loss out here in Orlando means the Knicks can jump to the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. For the first time ever in NBA history, we have a three-way tie for number 1 seed in the Western Conference. We're going to hit on how that tiebreaker jumps into it all between the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the defending NBA champions, the Denver Nuggets. I'm going to hit on a new WWE storyline that I actually find rather interesting. And you know I'm going to hit on my New York Knicks. Going to bring in my buddy just in a moment. We've got a special guest coming in, guy who hasn't been here in quite some time. And we are also going to be hitting on my red hot New York Yankees. As I alluded to, they are playing some phenomenal baseball. And I am very excited about the direction that the New York Yankees are going in right now as they try to bring the brooms to Cleveland after a sweep. I will be back in just a moment. Hey guys, it's Richie. As promised, I have a guest on the show today, someone who hasn't been here for a while and someone who I love talking sports with, pretty much just talking anything with. My brother from another mother, Mr. Richard Dorney. I got you the cool little intro here. The Big Dorn Boski, aka Suge White, joining the panel.
What's going on, brother?
How are you, buddy? That's a really nice picture, by the way. You know I'm not a Met fan, but I'm all about family, and that is a beautiful picture of you and the girls. I love it.
Well, I am currently in the car on my way to Citi Field as today is a historic day in the Mets franchise, and me being me, needed to make sure that I was part of it. The Mets finally are retiring the one and only Doc Gooden, Dr. K's number 16, as it should have been done when the Coupons still owned the team.
Coupons. Rich, I'm happy for Dwight. He helped my Yankees win a couple of championships in the second phase of his career. We know the many struggles that man went through, but you can't argue with pure greatness when he was at his peak. And I do want to ask you that, being a Met fan that you are.
So before we talk about Gooden, I'm going to say something good about the Yankees, which is not something that I would regularly do.
Okay.
George Steinbrenner and the Yankees, if I owe them anything, it's that two of my childhood heroes are still alive because of George Steinbrenner. And it may have been as a big FU to that team in Queens and to a fan base. And when Steinbrenner was here, it was almost as important to him to be the most important thing in New York as it was to just be winning. But taking the opportunity, taking the chance, I should say, on resurrecting Dwight Gooden and Darryl Strawberry's careers, really, and they've both said it, set them on a path to still be alive today in 2024 and to be here, to be remembered and retired. So kudos to them and good on the Yankees and giving them a second chance and giving them confidence and keeping them, on the straight and narrow to some extent.
I'm very grateful as well that both those guys are still alive because What I like about what the boss did when referencing what Dwight and Daryl respectively were going through, he said, "Guys, they're good people. This is a disease." And the boss, who was always maniacal about winning, put health of these two men before winning, and I legitimately appreciate that. There's a lot of things about the boss's legacy that are not that nice, but that is something, and I appreciate you as being a rival acknowledging that as well. But today it's about Dwight Gooden, um, Dr. K, going back to
Yeah,
his
I mean,
days.
we're a little bit young to remember all of the hype. I mean, 81 I was born, but if being a Mets fan and a Mets historian, and with the access to the internet the way that things are, and being able to watch old games, Gooden is a special player that comes along once in a lifetime. 84 rookie of the year, 85, pitching triple crown, MVP, Cy Young, excuse me, World Series in '86. He was a Silver Slugger one year, an All Star with the first 3 seasons, I believe. Gooden was special, and when he was on, you don't get a name like Dr. K without delivering, his fastball and then his famous curveball. Do you remember what that was nicknamed?
Go ahead.
You don't remember?
I do, but I want you to say it because you're the Met fan.
The Uncle Charlie, Lord Charles. I'm messing it up now.
That thing was dirty. That's the bottom line. And you know, I have this question for you. We're talking about Dwight. Number 16, in my opinion, finally gets retired. I'm happy that they retired Keith Hernandez. Regardless of team affiliation, I'm a Yankee, you're a Met. These are guys as New Yorkers and caring about baseball that we appreciate because these guys are great, bottom line. But I have to ask you, how good was Dwight Gooden and how good could he have been?
I think had he had some better people around him, I think had he had a better path, we would have probably seen even more of those legendary seasons out of him. You know, the era that he was here, cocaine was part of the
All of it.
lifestyle that existed.
Yes, sir.
And love him or hate him, the '86 Mets. What do they say all the time? I read the book. The bad guys won. They were in an era of excess. They were looked at as rock stars. They fought on and off the field, and he, indulged to the best of it. He was a quiet guy. Everything that I've heard, read, all the interviews that I've seen, he was someone who didn't really want the limelight to the extent that he had gotten it. But I would have loved to know what he could have become. And, it's so quick how it fizzled out for him also. I mean, if you look at even just the games that he pitched, I mean, post Yankees, it's a Cleveland Indian and a Tampa Bay Ray. I mean, there's not much there to talk about. But I've heard it firsthand. Gooden has a lot of regrets. He even missed the
The parade.
the parade
Very
for the
sadly,
World Series.
very
He was
sadly.
in a not so great place on Long Island, using drugs until the next morning. Um, but instead of focusing on all that, I mean, you look at a guy who was dominant those first few years and was completely lights out when he needed to be. And I'm excited to get there today. Later on in the season, they're also going to, and fittingly so, the same season, retired Daryl's number. I'm sure I will be there to see that. It's really good to see that the Mets embrace these guys. It's a generation gap that they're still around. Obviously, Ronnie and Keith in the booth, and if you're at the stadium on any given day, you run into some of these guys. It's been a long time since I've been able to tell you I've seen a ring on a Mets player's fingers, and some might laugh at the fact that we honor these guys as much as we do, but they were more than just a championship baseball team. They ran New York when they were here, and Gooden was in the mix of it at all times.
Buddy, no judgment. on team affiliation and team loyalty because, as you can see, I'm rocking my old school Patrick Ewing jersey. And I know what it's like to love a team and to remember great years, even if it wasn't what it could have been. And in the Knicks case, there was a fellow by the name of Michael Jordan that made sure a lot of that didn't happen. In the Mets case, I think you might agree with me. I think that the Mets were their biggest adversary because of everything that you just alluded to. Excess, literally being rock stars. My father, rest his soul, had the privilege of being around some of these guys during a couple of years of the 80s. And, even as a Yankee fan, my dad brought home two things. These guys are really good, but these guys are on the edge, some of them. So, the 88 season, I'm sure you'd agree with me here, the best team didn't win that year. The 88 Mets probably were better than the 86 Mets.
Yeah, and then they ran into the 88 Dodgers. So
Indeed. And Oral Hershiser had a postseason for the ages. But I think one thing that we will both agree on, because we do meet in the middle somewhere here because we are Giant fans. 1986, the New York Football Giants and the New York Mets ran New York City. They captivated the sports world. And if you haven't, as a Yankee fan, I'm telling you to watch this. Once Upon a Time in Queens, definitely a good watch, paying homage to one of the greatest single-season baseball teams to ever do it. I might be a Yankee fan, but I tell the truth on my show, and I have a lot of respect for what the
did you watch
Mets accomplished.
Gooden's? Gooden had his moment in the sun as a Yankee too. Besides being on the 2000 team when they won the World Series.
He spanned on two different Yankee stints, but his moment in the sun was his no-hitter.
No-hitter, yeah.
That was beautiful to see a career fully resurrected because, Lord knows, to your point, in between the Yankees and the Mets, Dwight was at a very low point. And he and Darryl, even when they still had issues with addiction during their Yankee tenure, to your point, George Steinbrenner valued the human above the ball player. And for that, I think Met and Yankee fans should both be thankful for the boss.
Well, I've always had a love for Gooden. Shout out to my wife for right after the birth of our youngest daughter, let me wait online for an hour plus to get a one-of-a-kind stadium banner signed by Gooden while she had the girls in the car. He's definitely a focal piece for some of the memorabilia that I own, and if it speaks anything to him and the guys around him, one of my favorite pieces, and you might have seen this, is that Bad Boys jersey that I have signed by Strawberry Gooden and Nails himself, Lenny Dykstra. So I thought that somebody had washed the jersey. It came with what I thought was some Tide detergent on it, but quite possibly not.
Nails is one of those ball players that did it for both the Mets and Phillies. We don't wish that same success for Mr. 26, but Nails was an intense ball player.
Yes. Steroids are a big help.
Rich, I appreciate you stopping in on your way to doing something special that enhances your fanhood and just your experience of being not just a Mets fan, but one of the true great Met fans. Rivalry aside, this man loves his team, and I respect that fully. And I hope you guys win today. I do. For you and for Dr. K, I hope the Mets get a W today. You're not going to hear me say that very frequently on my show, but today I will say that.
I think that this Mets team can be in the mix for a playoff this year.
It's not out of the question.
We're in a division with two really big powerhouses in all of baseball. Spencer Strider going down is a big knock to the Braves. It might put the Phillies as the front runner. This is a weird season for us. Francisco Lindor is going to be the corner piece of this team for a long time, and I'm happy that he's here. I wish that he had a little bit thicker of skin because this is New York and you got to deal with the booze.
It could give you the Javi Baez vibes to a level. I know you and I at a Met game discussed that in detail.
I think he's a different kind of guy than Javi Baez, and it shows by him still sitting in there. I mean, I don't know. Last time I checked in, I think Baez hasn't gotten a hit since 2022. So
He
uh,
recently, talking about Lindor, recently praised the fan base and saying that when he feels the love, it makes him even more of a ball player. I mean, I get it. I think Lindor is going to be just fine. I still think he's one of the best talents at that position. Um, I hope for your team's sake, you figure out a way to lock up Pete Alonso long term. We'll see how that plays.
well, I think, and by the way, I'm wearing my all black Alonso jersey to the game today.
Yeah, I caught that
I
on your way out there. Yeah.
I think this offseason where Boris wasn't Boris, and a lot of clients kind of got what they could get at the end of it all. And now you have Jordan Montgomery who just left him, and I think somebody else the last few days.
Yeah, he doesn't have that same staying power that he once upon a time did.
I also think that these guys are all making money now, where it's if you dream up everything you ever wanted as a little kid and you can get it, and you can get it going to almost any team you want now, you're going to go where you want to go. And I hope that New York has embraced Pete Alonso enough and have cheered him on enough. And as long as I can remember that him being here, I don't think that there's ever been a season where he was booed or where he was slumping long enough for it to affect him. So I'm hoping he sticks it out and stays here. He seems to like it. He's a fan favorite. He's a generational guy. I don't mind his batting average as long as he's hitting over 40 bombs a season through the better part of it, and that's exciting to see. But I think there's a lot of bright future here for this team. I think there's a lot of pieces that are coming up that are going to be here, and I have faith in what's going on, and I'm excited to see it. But thanks for giving me a few minutes today, and I am about minutes away from the stadium, and I'm going to start to lose service anyway. But big shout out to Dr. K, and you should enjoy every minute of it today. It's a beautiful day here in New York. It's one of the first warm days we've had. I'm excited to be out here.
I'm excited for you. You deserve to be there because you are one of the best Met fans I've ever met. So I hope you enjoyed today, Rich. Feel free to hit me on your commute back, and don't get used to me saying this, but for at least one day, go Dr. K in orange and blue, and go New York Mets for the sake of my brother. Go win a game today.
Let's go Mets.
Take care, Rich. Thanks for coming in, bro.
Thanks. Bye.
Later. That was cool. I love hearing from him in general. Little backstory on me and Rich. He is literally my longest standing friend ever. Our grandfathers actually served in the military together. Our two late aunts were both the best of friends. And I've basically known that kid since I was 6 months old. That is my brother. And just for today, I hope his team gets a W for his sake. Keeping it in baseball and in New York related for a moment here, we've got the red hot New York Yankees looking to bring the brooms into Cleveland. Despite leading MLB in grounded into double plays, which is 21 at the moment, the Yankees still have the best record in the early going 15 games through of 12-3, looking to improve to 13-3 today with a sweep. Win or lose today, it is a fifth consecutive series victory. They have not lost a series this year in the 2024 season. And I don't think the expectations were all that high, especially for the early going, when you consider that the reigning American League Cy Young Award winner, Garrett Cole, probably not going to appear in a game until after the All-Star break. I would have to say in between June and July. Yankees have persevered. They've gotten good pitching out of Carlos Rodon, who had a horrific year one in the Bronx. Marcus Stroman, for the most part, more good than bad in the early going. He didn't have the best media presence, so to speak, when he was a New York Met. This is his second go around in the big city. He's doing well. Nestor Cortez has been gutting it out. He still doesn't quite look like the guy he was 2 years ago, but he is gradually being present and contributing. What I am most excited about when I think about this Yankees start is the sheer fact that with Gleyber Torres and Aaron Judge coming out of the gates really, really cold, really, really slumping, they have not been negatively affected as a team. Juan Soto, if I was the New York Yankees, I would pay him like yesterday The New York Yankees need to lock up Juan Soto to a long-term deal, and I don't want to hear about the money. The Yankees got it if they want to spend it. You don't let a guy like that leave. I would prefer to see them extend him and not even let him hit the free agent market. His effect, not just in terms of his personal numbers, but what he does for that lineup on a day-to-day basis and the energy that he has brought into that clubhouse is invaluable. I love the start that Oswaldo Cabrera is off to. And it kind of sparks a memory of me going back to last season where I was concerned about the Yankees kind of cooling down and messing up the lineup when two dudes returned last year. Those two guys were Josh Donaldson, Giancarlo Stanton. This year, the guy that I'm worried about infiltrating the lineup and things going awry is actually DJ LeMahieu. When I think about that, you have Berti as well as Cabrera, who can man down that third base position. One guy would face righties, one guy would face lefties. I think that LeMahieu might actually figure better to occasionally play second, occasionally play first, to spell a guy like a Torres or a guy like a Rizzo. Torres also would make more sense to possibly spell because of the fact that he is off to such a bad start. Now, LeMahieu's injured right now. We don't know when he's going to retire or when he's going to leave the Yankees. But my personal logic tells me that this is the last year for DJ LeMahieu in a Yankees uniform. Better days are far behind him, in my opinion. And Anthony Rizzo, I still think is a question mark how much further he goes with the team. But I think Rizzo has a better chance of staying than LeMahieu. As the Yankees go, Clay Holmes has been money in the ninth inning role. He's doing a phenomenal job. And Aaron Boone, say what you want about him. He's been hitting all the right buttons early. I expect the Yankees to win yet again today and to continue their torrid April. You cannot put a price on how important getting off to a good start is, because in the dog days of summer, when things get thick, it's not easy. And for the crosstown rival Mets, I'm going to make a mention of one thing. Dorney made a good point before he stepped out. The Spencer Strider injury to the Atlanta Braves does derail some of their ceiling to a level. You don't just lose a guy like that and be okay. A lot of baseball to be played, but Dorney, in my eyes, made a good point. Before I hit on our NBA scenarios, I do want to speak on WWE and the Bloodline for a moment. Jimmy Uso was savagely beaten by family member Tama Tonga, who got his debut, and Solo Sikoa. Does this new Bloodline storyline in WWE open the door for an Uso reunion, as well as a Roman Reigns babyface turn? What does this mean for The Rock when he eventually returns as well? I'm going to start with The Rock. When The Rock eventually comes back, which will probably be 6 to 12 months from now for either SummerSlam or maybe next year's Mania, I believe that his first focus is going to be going straight at Cody Rhodes. As the Bloodline goes, as many of you know, Roman Reigns, 31 title defenses over a 4-year span, but a little bit too much part-time for WWE's liking. Roman is a cancer survivor, so I do think to a level they tried to accommodate him to keep him healthy, which I appreciate because that's more important than the results in the ring. But Cody, being the more full-time talent and a guy who's been carrying the company, got to wear the strap most recently at Mania, and he deserves the role. He deserves to see where he could take it. But I like this Bloodline storyline. The Rock's off to Hollywood. Roman Reigns got a phone call in the ring. Solo Sikoa smashed the phone. Paul Heyman was very panicked seeing Solo and Tama Tonga put a beat down on Jimmy Uso. I was kind of waiting for Jay to come on, his babyface brother. Good guy versus bad guy. They had a great match at Mania. But off air, that did actually happen. So I think this sets up one of the more decorated tag teams of all time, the Uso brothers, to get back together on the babyface side of things. This should set up a decent feud within the Bloodline to hold down some storylines for a while. I don't know when exactly we're going to see Roman Reigns, but him being the tribal chief and him being dethroned as the champion recently at WrestleMania, I believe that he is going to have a huge say in how all this goes. But I do kind of sniff and smell a potential Roman Reigns babyface turn It's been a minute since he's been a good guy, quote unquote, but it will be interesting to see how that plays out. I love what the WWE is doing right now. I think moving along from the PG label has put the product in a better place for people in my age bracket, people a little younger than me, people a little older than me. I think the kids had their run in terms of, the PG stuff, but right now you have these little spurts that remind you of the Attitude Era. The women's division has never been better. It's a good product right now. With The Rock being on the TKO board, with Triple H being overseeing creative, and with Stephanie McMahon back in the fold, at least for now, I think they're in a good place. And I've been tuning in more frequently, and I'm enjoying it. We're going to hit on the NBA scenarios here. In the Eastern Conference, my beloved New York Knicks host the Chicago Bulls in a regular season finale. A win coupled with a Milwaukee Bucks loss in Orlando will give the Knicks the number 2 seed. Why is that so important? Well, for one, you get home court for 2 consecutive rounds. You can still get home court as a 3 if somebody, higher than you lost in round 1, but that's the easiest way to ensure yourself to get 2 consecutive series with home court advantage, where a game 5 and a game 7 would be in your house. That is huge. Knicks are also a very good home team this year, better than in previous years. They have played very good ball at Madison Square Garden. I think the win a couple of nights ago against the Boston Celtics gave the Knicks a lot of confidence to look at themselves in the mirror and say, you know what? They are the NBA's best, but we could hang with these guys. It's going to have to go through Boston if the Knicks intend on winning their first NBA title since 1973. I have never had the pleasure of seeing my Knicks hoist the Naismith Memorial Trophy. It's time. I want it. Let's get it. But regardless of how this plays out, the Knicks getting the 2 seed is a massive, massive step in the right direction. And what makes it interesting is that a potential play-in scenario with the Miami Heat could lead to a round 1 matchup with the Knicks. And as many of you may know, last year's Knicks had home court advantage and managed to lose that series against the Heat. And I think revenge is on the brain of many a Knicks fan as well as many a Knicks player. In the West, first time ever in NBA history, 3 teams enter the final game of the season in a tie for the 1 seed out west. The Thunder get the 1 seed if it ends up being a 3-way tie. The Thunder get the 1 seed if they tie with the Nuggets. If it's a 3-way tie between the Thunder, the Timberwolves, and the Nuggets, the Timberwolves would get it. That's an interesting one. The Nuggets get the 1 seed if the Thunder and Timberwolves both lose as well. So this has never happened before in NBA history. Now I'm going to hit you with my predictions for how I think today plays out for these 1 and 2 seed games that are pertinent to this mess here. My predictions for the games that affect the Western Conference 1 seed and the Eastern Conference 2. New York Knicks 111 over the hated Chicago Bulls. I still remember the Michael Jordan era. I still hate them. The Orlando Magic 114, the Milwaukee Bucks 101. This is the Milwaukee Bucks without the great Giannis. Dallas Mavericks by a point over the Oklahoma City Thunder in OKC. That's my upset here. Denver Nuggets by 25 over the lowly Memphis Grizzlies. And I've got the Minnesota Timberwolves digging deep into overtime and defeating the Phoenix Suns. That's how that's going to look. So, NBA playoffs are around the corner, and it's a very exciting time. But I do have to make a mention of something before I get out of here. As many of you know, the very controversial O.J. Simpson lost his battle with cancer a few days ago. He kept it rather quiet, where a lot of people didn't realize the extent of what he was going through. And I painted a picture most recently on a show of how I always have a connection with the New York Knicks and O.J. Simpson because of the trial, because of the car chase. The car chase literally took precedent over an NBA Finals game. The first NBA Finals game, Christ, since 1973. At the time, it was 1994. So that was a long time, a very long time, to not have a host a finals game in the Mecca, Madison Square Garden. But this is my thing with O.J. Simpson and my New York teams. Bear with me here one moment. All right. So, taking it back to 1994, prior to the MLB strike, which was the first time in my lifetime that a World Series wasn't played, and it was a very sad time for the sport. Ultimately, the steroid era recovered baseball. Like it or not, it's the truth. The New York Yankees had the best record in the American League at this time. The New York Rangers, as well as the New York Knicks, going into the playoffs and ultimately prevailing in both Eastern Conferences. The Rangers won the Cup. The Knicks fell one game short in the NBA Finals. Rangers had the best record in hockey that year. The Knicks had the second best record in the East. And as I already said, the Yankees had the best record in the American League. Fast forward 30 years later, after the trial of the century and these sports events happening, O.J. Simpson recently passed away. Kind of brings back the memories of the trial of the century and many things of that nature. In the early going, the Yankees have the best record in Major League Baseball. With a little help from the Orlando Magic and a win by themselves, the New York Knicks will be the 2 seed, similar to 94. And the New York Rangers have basically locked up best record in hockey in the East. Pretty wild. It's all kind of coming full circle. But I must admit, there's a lot of great arenas, there's a lot of great stadiums. But what Madison Square Garden is going to be treated to over the course of the next, hopefully, month and a half, we want this to go far between the Knicks and the Rangers. It's going to be a hell of a ride for hockey and basketball enthusiasts alike. And if you love both sports, even better. There is nothing quite like the atmosphere of Madison Square Garden when your teams are relevant. And right now, the New York Knicks and the New York Rangers are very relevant. And the Rangers just achieved the most wins in their franchise's history. I know I've said on many a show that I am worried about. I'm worried about this whole President's Trophy crap. There's something to the number 54, and I want to make a mention of this. Last time the New York Rangers won the Cup, they got out of a 54-year drought. They get the most wins in franchise history at 54. That number means something. It's good juju. I think the New York Rangers are going to win their first Stanley Cup since 1994, and I don't think it's going to be easy, especially in the first round. The pressure is going to be on them because they are favored to come out of the East, and we all know that they have a long lineage of heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak. But I think the Blue Shirts are very close to doing something special. And I think the boys in orange and blue may not necessarily win the NBA title this year, but I think they're going to make some serious noise and have people very stoked about what the prospects of next season bring. And you never know, man. The Knicks might just do it. I have never, ever experienced the Knicks NBA title. 1994 was heartbreaking. John Starks went from being the probable MVP of that series to having the worst game of his professional career in Game 7. Fast forward it 5 years later, the Knicks, as an 8 seed, shocked the world, but lost Patrick Ewing to a torn Achilles in a game he finished in Game 1 against the Indiana Pacers. It's a beautiful time to be a New York sports fan. The seasons are changing, and I must admit, I myself am getting very nostalgic about the special season that was 1994, but a season that could have been more. The strike prevented the Yankees from potentially winning the World Series that year and hurt me because Don Mattingly is my favorite player, and that was his best shot. The Knicks were one game short. The Rangers won the Cup. What could have been 3 parades was 1 parade, but nonetheless, very nostalgic of my younger years, and it would be awesome to see what these guys could do right now. Enjoy today's day of sports. Enjoy today, man. Make it count. It's a beautiful day out here, and I'm going to enjoy today. We will be back soon. NBA playoffs on the horizon. We're going to be giving you guys the goods on our outlook once this playoff picture is completely complete. When it's done, ready to go, we're going to analyze it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to give you the upsets. We're going to give you who's going where. NFL draft also around the corner. Looking forward to getting those shows out to you as we're going to be doing our mock drafts right here on the air. And that's going to be a lot of fun. Until next time, I am Richie, and thank you for spending a brief part of your Sunday with me. Take care, everyone, and have a great Sunday.